Hey everyone! Welcome back to the Brickhaven Project. In today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look at how I was able to light my entire LEGO city. So, let's get into it. Wiring and lighting a layout of this size is definitely not an easy task, so it definitely requires a lot of organization and a lot of knowledge on how to use the different lighting tools that the different companies provide for us. So let's start by taking a closer look and a bit of a breakdown on how I light every single car here in the LEGO City. Let's start by taking a look at how I was able to light this Land Rover Defender model. So, starting with the basics, I decided to light the two front headlights as well as the two rear brake lights. Now, in order to accomplish this, we're actually going to pop the roof off, and you can see that inside there is an expansion board sitting in the trunk. And so what I did was I popped off the headlights in the front, and I decided to run the wires underneath the chassis of the vehicle. And so I run the wires all the way from the front, underneath, and up into the back trunk where I have the expansion board. Same thing goes for the brake lights. You run them from the light itself all the way into the back. Then you're going to need to run an extension wire, which is this here. That's going to go from the expansion board outside of the vehicle. This is what you're going to plug into the road setup to power your vehicle. Then after neatly putting the wires together, snapping the roof back on top of the Land Rover, you have your completed vehicle that is now ready for integration into your layout with full lighting capabilities. Next, let's take a look at what it takes to light one of the smaller buildings I have in the front of the layout. Here we have my train station model, and when it comes to lighting a small building like this, you're going to need to start with an entrance point for the wire. So you can see here I have a wire peeking up between the mills plate behind that bush, and that leads into the first strip light that's underneath the awning. Then that's connected to the next strip light, and then from there transitions inside the building where I created this beam to hold the third strip light that's actually going to light the interior of our building. Then the wire transitions out and goes into more strip lights along the platform. This creates an amazing look for the train station while still being able to light up the inside building as well. When it comes to lighting the modulars, this is where things get a little more complicated. You're still going to follow the same steps of having one wire going into the building, and then this is where you might use some of those expansion boards we encountered when we were working on the Land Rover Defender. These are going to allow you to connect multiple lights off of one spot to allow you to create a much brighter space, and is especially useful in buildings that are much bigger than the train station itself. Then you can get even more complex with different lights like I have on my Palace Cinema sign. These are all flashing LED lights, and these are all connected one by one to create this really cool flashing effect on the Palace Cinema board sign. There's even more effects boards that you can use, including a flashing module, which allows for the turn signal I have on this truck, as well as another module, which can allow you to create emergency sirens for cop cars and fire trucks. These are especially useful to add a lot more life to your LEGO city. Once you have all of your cars and buildings lit, the next step is to connect them to a power source. Here we find ourselves behind the Town Hall row, where you can see all three of the buildings are connected into this expansion board. From here there's an extension cable that runs into the mills plate and through the train track mills plates, and will come out a USB plug, which will come down here and connect into one of many of my USB hubs that are connected into my power strip. This powers everything on the layout, from the cars to the buildings to everything else that's completely lit. And this is exactly what you're going to want to use to power your layout. The size of the layout definitely will determine how many USB hubs you need to use. In this case, I'm using 7. And once you add all of your buildings and cars to your power source, you can turn off your studio lights, turn on the power strip, and finally get the first look at where all of your hard work has been put to. And finally get the aesthetic of having a nighttime scene in your Lego city. And it's honestly one of the coolest parts about creating a Lego city, because I am all about storytelling in my Lego city. It's one of my favorite things I like to do with my layout. And so getting to tell stories not only in the daytime, but also at night with the use of all the lighting, and even little stories you can make just in the different lighting choices. So like, for instance, changing the lights above Al's barbershop to be a more yellowish tone rather than like a bright white tone. Little lighting choices like that can really go a long way. And then you can get into the more fun tidbits, like lighting your traffic light intersections and actually making the city really come to life with different flashing lights, such as the emergency vehicles, or even the light on the top of the water tower. And then as you keep moving along and lighting more and more buildings and more cars, it's one of those things where you just want to keep going and keep lighting more and more. When I started lighting my city, I started with just a couple cars. I started with these 3 cars on this main street here. And then I really got hooked, so I started and continued to light the rest of the cars down this street. And then I jumped to lighting the smaller buildings. One really big piece of advice is start small. I started with just a few cars and a couple really small buildings, just so that way you can get used to what it's like to actually work with the really tiny lighting components and feeding wires into different places and choosing different colors of lights to really impact your build. And then once you get more used to lighting smaller buildings and cars, you can almost level up to the larger buildings, such as the modular buildings. And it took a while for me to level up to the modular buildings because it was definitely an intimidating task. But I started on the left side with the fire brigade, and I just went building by building, slowly but surely lighting up the entire block. And it is absolutely worth it in the end. The visuals and the shots that you can achieve when your Lego city is fully lit is beyond anything you can get during the daytime. And so if you're struggling with lighting, just take it one step at a time. Take lots of breaks. I definitely didn't light this entire table all in one sitting. It took probably over the course of a year and a half to get all of the lights done on the table that you see in front of you, because I didn't want to get burnt out. And that's one of the hardest things that you want to try to avoid when you're doing your lighting, because ultimately it is still a hobby and it's still supposed to be fun. So just do lighting when you're motivated to. And that's exactly what I did. And slowly but surely, you can get your entire city lit up and create all of the visuals and shots that you've ever wanted to, not only in the daytime, but also in the nighttime. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial or little video showcasing how I personally light my Lego city. I'm not saying that this is the only way to do it or this is the best way to do it. Just wanted to give you guys sort of my take on lighting in the Lego space and how I have gotten through that. But I am incredibly happy with how the lighting has turned out. And if you guys have any questions or comments about the lighting I have in my city, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below, and I will try to answer any questions that you guys have when it comes to the lighting on my layout. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, feel free to subscribe, leave a like, and definitely comment down below any thoughts or questions that you guys have when it comes to the lighting on my layout. So thanks again for watching. Stay tuned. I have a lot more content lined up for the channel, and I am very excited to keep making videos. So with that, we'll see you next time on the Brookhaven Project.